Hey everybody, Tim here. I'll talk if you'll listen. Episode 74. Welcome back. This episode might be a little interesting, and I'm hoping it sparks some debates, but in a healthy way. I don't need anybody gunning for anybody. I mainly wanted to talk about the results of a very interesting poll. Shout out to my friend, actually high school friend, Main Reason on Instagram, for posting something that kind of inspired the latest poll. So I want to talk about those results, but I also want to talk about just a few different things going on in my life, just to keep you all up to speed. Y'all know how we do by now. Y'all already know that I like to catch y'all up and talk about the goings on in my life, and just all my friends and family members who can't get in touch with me as often as maybe they would like to, or vice versa. Gives them an opportunity to play catch up. So let's dive right into it. So let's get the little trivial stuff out of the way first and talk about some adult stuff. So I went to my first ENT doctor, ears, nose, throat doctor, recently, and there's an actual name for it. Starts with an O. I can't pronounce it. I think if I hear it enough, I'll be able to pronounce it, but I can't pronounce it. But an ears, nose, and throat doctor. So halfway, because I don't really fully take advantage of my insurance maybe the way I should. There are so many different things. I remember last year, and once more a few years before that, I finally took advantage of the mental health aspect, and I'm like, look, I'm paying into this insurance. Why not take advantage of it, right? Otherwise, I'm paying for nothing. And I took advantage from the mental health. But now, I'm looking into things like wellness screenings, and especially considering most insurance companies will reimburse you to a degree, or sometimes even give you gift cards for wellness screenings or certain other services or types of care that you choose to willingly take part in. So my insurance has been doing that. So I've been exploring a few different things, but I'm like, hey, look, ENT doctor, how did I get there? So of course I'm in the shower, like this is months ago, and I let water run down my ear, try to clean my ear, and it kind of gets blocked, and I'm thinking, oh, it's just water in there. That happens from time to time. It gets trapped. It'll kind of slowly come out, right? It'll drain itself. Never happened. So off and on, my ear would kind of just be blocked, and I couldn't hear out of that ear. And maybe when I yawn or if I eat, the ear has a very significant connection with the jawline. So of course, certain movement from your jaw helps your ear out. So it would unblock, but then of course it would block, and it will be the worst at night when I'm sleeping. I would sleep on one side, sleep on the other side, and then it would kind of just close up on me, and I would wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom or get some water or change the temperature in the house, and I can't hear jack. And after a while, I guess my other ear kind of felt left out and wanted to join the party. So it's like, hey, I want to get on this not being able to hear crap either. So the right ear kind of jumps in, and there would be times I would wake up in the middle of the night and I can't hear anything. I would kind of have to like hold my nose and like blow to pop my ears. It would just be crazy, and never really crossed my mind until I was talking to a coworker, and the coworker's like, yeah, I got to go to ENT doctor to, drain, the wax buildup in my ear. And I'm like, well, I never thought of that. Like, I kind of knew practically that those doctors existed, but you all ever find yourself in a situation where things exist, but for whatever reason, you can't put yourself in that scenario? For example, chiropractors exist. And you're like, oh, yeah, I know what a chiropractor is, and I know what they do, and I actually drive by offices or have seen offices all the time, but you don't, like, mentally put yourself in a situation to go to a chiropractor, even though you might need to. So from here, it's like, okay, great. I'll explore that option, especially because insurance covers it. So I'm fiddling around with my insurance. I check it out. ENT doctors. Okay, great. So I go last week and I set up the appointment. Didn't really like the experience from the staff, like the actual intake people or the people who have you fill out forms. Was not a friendly environment. And it really sucked because I'm the type of person where I want to feel comfortable, especially if it's my first time doing anything. And they got to know you're a new patient, right? Like they got to know that you have to tell them. They ask you all the time, hey, are you a new patient, et cetera, et cetera. And just over the phone, the person just left me on hold for a long periods of time. Didn't really know answers to questions. Just seemed very aloof. Then when I finally go, no hello, no how are you doing? I'm the first one to speak. And it's one of those things where it just didn't feel welcoming. So to be clear, they weren't rude. They weren't rude or inappropriate or anything. It's just very short, and very unwelcoming. So I'm sitting there waiting to be, taken back to the doctor. And I'm thinking to myself, never again. I'm never coming back here again. Maybe another ENT, but not this location. So I get taken back, and the person is very friendly. I don't know. I guess let's call her a nurse. She was the nurse. Very friendly, having conversations, very social, laughing, made me feel really comfortable, asked me a few questions. I'm like, okay, not too bad. But now I'm waiting for 25 minutes. My appointment was set at a specific time, and now I'm sitting here waiting 25 minutes. I'm like, get me. I was hoping to get some more work done today. I got other stuff to do. And 25 minutes later, the doctor comes strolling in, and he's really nice. He's really nice. He's very friendly. He's very educational. He educates me on some things and tells me how to use over-the-counter items for wax buildup and how often it happens, why it happens, what can't be done to prevent it, what can be done to prevent it, things you want to stay away from. And it's stuff that you kind of already know, but it gets taken to the next level if the doctor is telling you about it. So he tells me Q-tips are essentially pointless, at least for ear cleaning. You should never stick any Q-tips into your ear. And I kind of knew that already. I just didn't know how dangerous it could be. And he says, yeah, you could damage your ear. You could cause some other complications. And more importantly, the Q-tip is about the same size as the ear canal. So you're not really getting the wax out. If there's wax along the wall of the ear canal, you're kind of taking that out. It's almost kind of if there was, imagine you were walking down a hallway and the width of your body without you moving your arms, your natural standing position, is about the same size as the hallway. So you could probably wipe stuff off of the wall of that hallway. Let's say it was paint or dirt on the wall. You could probably wipe that off. But anything that's in front of you, you're basically pushing back deeper into the hallway. That's kind of what a Q-tip does. If there's anything up against the walls of your ear canal, it's going to get that wax out, or dirt or debris or whatever's there. It's going to get that out. But basically, whatever's in front of the Q-tip, you're pushing all of that wax back in, and you're making it a little bit tougher because you're compacting it. So it's getting closer. It's basically pushing trash down into the trash can, right? You're compacting it, and it makes it a little bit more difficult for it to get out. So you can cause a lot of issues. So I never really used Q-tips much anyway, but every now and again I did, even though I kind of knew you weren't really supposed to. But, he's very informative, very friendly. Then from there, I go to another doctor or nurse. I'm not too sure what the position was. And she gives me an audiogram. I'm sorry, I skipped a part. The doctor, the ENT doctor, cleans out my ears. It felt amazing. Apparently, there are a lot of nerve endings inside of your ear and in and around your ear that are directly tied to pleasure. So for all of my people out there with kinks, if you're very, let's just say, creative in your sex life, you kind of already knew that, but maybe you didn't know the science behind it or I can't say the word, the physiological reasoning behind it. But yeah, there's a bunch of nerve endings in there. So I felt like this guy should have took me out to dinner afterwards, or I should have had a cigarette afterwards. I'm like, goodness, that ear cleaning felt amazing. It felt amazing. So I encourage you to do it. I came home. I told my girl about it. I'm like, you should go. I'm like telling her, like, you need to go. You need to go. Not for the simple fact of getting your ears cleaned out, not because it's healthy, not because, you should get your ears checked. No, simply because it felt good, right? It's almost kind of like going to like a spa or something or getting a massage and like, oh, that felt amazing. I got to tell somebody about this. It felt the same way for their ear cleaning. Felt amazing. Non-invasive at all. It didn't feel weird. It didn't feel awkward. It is a little loud, so a little discomfort there. But other than that, it felt amazing. And honestly, it just felt like, imagine having a stuffy nose and then you just blow your nose or you drink tea or aromatherapy and the blockage just goes away and you're able to take like a full breath of air. It's kind of like that but for your ears. It's just so amazing. Or it's kind of like having a bunch of gunk in your throat and you clear your throat and now it's like smooth sailing. It's the same thing but for your ears. It feels amazing. um Depending on how much wax is in there, your equilibrium could get thrown off just a little bit. But everything, even me talking into this microphone now, everything sounds clearer, much clearer. It was like a huge weight lifted off of my shoulders. It's definitely great. And only for a $30 copay because of my insurance. Definitely worth it. Like, I spent $30 at a movie theater. I can do this for my health, and it's just great. So I encourage everybody to look into it. It was so dope, felt so great. It felt like I was hearing in stereo. The only downside is I couldn't use the excuse of not being able to hear my girl when she talks. Couldn't use that as an excuse anymore, but dope experience. So from there, after the ear cleaning, I go from there to another room to get an audiogram, which if you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically like a hearing test. So I get my hearing test. She said my hearing was amazing. And I'm like, it better better be. My sight is horrible. For those of you who know me personally, you know this. I'm extremely nearsighted. So I'm like, hey, like, my sense of hearing better be good. Hell, it better be great. And it was, which is good. And then we went into this conference room and the doctor said, hey, look, I'm going to see you again in 6 months just to see how things look. And after that, as needed. And he answered a few questions. I asked him some questions about the jawline and the nerve endings in the ear. And, hey, why do your ears pop when you yawn or anything? And he said, basically, I forget what it is, but it's basically like this important like muscle or nerve or tissue in your ear is literally right up against like your jawbone, like rubs up against it. So if that part is like stretched out, that's where all popping and stuff. And when your ear pops and things like that, it's fine. Like it's not unhealthy. It's not like cracking your knuckles or your neck or anything like that the wrong way. Which was great. So now I'm like torn. I'm like, okay, so the staff was like not friendly at all, but the medical staff was amazing. Like the first nurse I spoke with, the nurse that did the audiogram, and the doctor, they were all great. They were all friendly. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you know what? Maybe I'll give the staff a second chance. Like this place was extremely close. I walked to there. It took me about 20 minutes to walk, but it's right around the corner. Super convenient to get to and covered by my insurance. It's in network. And I like the medical staff. The medical staff was great. So I tried to give the normal personnel, like the non-medical staff, benefit of the doubt and say, hey, look, maybe they were just busy or they need a while to like warm up to me, things of that nature. We'll see how it goes in 6 more months, the type of experience I get. And honestly, I don't have to be treated like a prince when I walk in there. But I would like like a smile or a hello, how are you? How about some eye contact? I didn't even get that. Just basically like barking orders at me. Hey, fill this out, sign this, give me your ID, what's your insurance card number, and all this other stuff. It's just kind of like, look, I know you're doing your job, and at the end of the day, you're not being paid to be friendly, but it goes to the experience. It's almost like going to a grocery store. The people at the checkout line, or the staff stocking the shelves, or the butcher, or whoever's working behind the counter at the deli, them being nicer won't change the quality of food that you're buying, but it damn sure will dictate, especially with so much competition, it damn sure will dictate where you go. And that can have a huge impact on just some practical things. So, highly encourage ENT visit. Look up your insurance. Copay for specialist visits for most insurance companies are about, 10, 20, $30 depending on your insurance plan. No more than maybe like 50 for specialty visits. And you will be thankful. Not only will you be able to hear in stereo, it feels damn good. And I'm not too embarrassed to say that, it felt amazing. It felt really, really good. One more thing to talk about, and then we can kind of roll into the main course, so to speak. Wanted to talk a little bit about my work that I'm doing with this certification. You guys probably haven't heard me talk a little bit about the certification in a bit. So I'm going to give you one challenge that I'm trying to overcome, and I'm going to give you something that I learned, which I think is pretty cool. So it's been really challenging as an adult learner, and I think I spoke about this before a couple episodes back. As an adult learner, it's really difficult to try to move things around to take on more responsibility, because it's not like you get more time. It's not like you can create more time. You can put yourself in a position to get more money. You can put yourself in a position to get more sleep. You can put yourself in a position to eat more food, maybe one extra meal a day or something like that. But no matter what you do and where you are in your life, you only ever have 24 hours. Even if you stay up straight, you only ever have 24 hours. It's basically, hey, how efficient can you be with that time? How much can you do in that time? How much can you accomplish? And it's challenging, man. It really, really is. So I'm going to give you what like a typical day is like for me. And there's going to be two types of people who hear this. One, people are going to say, stop, complaining, stop whining. And, I worked 3 jobs and put myself through school. You can do it. And I do need to hear a little bit of that. Not all of it, but some of it. But then there's going to be another group of people like, look, I work all day. I work 50, 60 hours in some cases, especially for my salaried friends out there. I got other things going on socially. I'm in a relationship, so that's a job in and of itself because I got to give my partner time a day. I have other fraternal or social things going on, other activities. And, when you're trying to make time for stuff, sometimes you just poop and you quite literally want to make time to do nothing. Like that's your plan. People hit you up. Hey, what are you doing? Nothing. Oh, so you're free. No, I am actively doing nothing. Like I put that down as a task. I am doing nothing. And it's really hard to do that, especially when you find yourself in a leadership position, because the people who you're responsible for as a leader, you can't really dictate when something will pop off, right? You can't say, I'm a leader, I only want to deal with things Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. Something could pop up Saturday at 7. Something could pop up at Sunday at 2, and in my boss's scenario, something could pop up at 3 in the morning, and you kind of got to deal with it, right? So you have that, and a lot of people in that group will give me a little bit of empathy. And they're like, look, I get it. I understand. So it's been challenging to either A, find the time to complete coursework, or B, want to do coursework. And sometimes it's really easy for me to do certain things. Like sometimes I don't want to go for a walk, or I don't want to go to the gym, which is another thing I added on, by the way. I'm back in the gym, so that's more time out of my day, right? And week. But, I get up, I say to myself, I really don't feel like going to the gym. But what motivates me is, 1, getting to the body that I want to have. And 2, knowing that it's healthy. Nothing is more important to me than health. But lastly, going, look, I know I don't want to go now, but I know it's the right thing to do. And I know once I go and I'm going to be done, I'm going to be so happy that I did it. And it's easy for me. It's like one of those things, once I start heading to the gym, and I've decided to walk to the gym, because the gym is only about 15 minutes away walking. So I decided to walk to the gym. I said, hey, I'm going to walk to the gym. The moment I step foot out of the house and I start walking, I done forgot that I don't want to go. By that point, I'm already in workout mode, and I'm going, and that's kind of like motivates me. Um, it's the same thing about drinking soda. Like, we have sparkling water now, and I'm like, I really want a soda, but I know the instant I crack open that can for that sparkling water, I'm going to forget the fact that I wanted a soda in the first place. So stuff like that is really easy for me to be disciplined on, because the fact that I don't want to do it kind of goes flying out of my head. But with the coursework, it's like time to do it, and you don't necessarily know when you're going to be done because you don't know how long the course is going to be. And you can't dictate how much time. So I can say, you know what? I only want to spend an hour for working out. Okay, it's going to take me 15 minutes to walk to the gym. It's going to take me 15 minutes to come from the gym. So that means I can either spend an hour in the gym and dedicate an hour and a half to this whole session, or I can spend 30 minutes in the gym and only take out an hour of my day. So I can dictate how much I do. But if I pick up a course and that course is 30 minutes, okay, great, I know that, but I'm locked into that 30 minutes. Or if I pick up another course that's not timed and it's just whenever you're done, it's on me to finish, especially one of those things where you can't take a break. You gotta finish it, or you're just starting over from the beginning the next time you pick it up. It's a little bit challenging, and I really beat myself up when I don't go to, like, if I don't go to the gym, I can say to myself, you know what, I'm going to go extra hard tomorrow then. Or I'm going to pick up an extra day. Or maybe I'll go twice over the weekend or something like that. Or, you know what, I'm going to stay in the gym twice as long or something like that. I can easily make that up. But when I don't make time for coursework, I really beat myself up. We talked about positive affirmations previously in a previous episode. Well, some of the things I say to myself is the opposite of that. You know, I say I'm lazy, I need to get my act together. And sometimes it's good stuff, right? Because it's me holding myself accountable. But other times it's like really self-destructive stuff that I probably shouldn't be saying to myself. But it's just one of those things, I beat myself up so much. And what I really need to do is find a sweet spot of holding myself accountable. Like the other day last week, I wanted pizza. But I said, I'm not going to order pizza if I don't go to the gym. And I went to the gym, I did what I had to do, and then I ordered pizza as my reward. Sometimes it's easy to do that. But I need to find a good middle ground of saying to myself, okay, Tim, you didn't do what you needed to do. You need to penalize yourself or, hold yourself accountable in some capacity. But it's okay. Life happens. Do what you got to do. Some things are outside your control. And sometimes you've earned the right to relax. I know society, especially those who are entrepreneurs, especially those with several degrees, master's degrees, doctorates, etc., tell you, oh, you got to work hard 24/7. You always got to be doing something. And that works for some people, but everything ain't for everybody. And sometimes you've earned the right to relax. You are only human. So I just got to find a good middle ground, a good balance of that. And I think I'll be all right. Question for you all. Well, I would love to hear feedback as you're listening. What's something in your life that you're working towards, whether that be saving up for a house, trying to get a new job, saving up for college, whatever the case may be, you're planning on having kids, whatever it is, remodeling a home, a room in your home. What's something that you put off from time to time and you kind of beat yourself up about? What's something that you hope to accomplish before too long, but maybe you need to be a little bit more disciplined about it? Hit me up on social media as you always do, or reply to the comments in this video if you're listening on YouTube or Spreaker, and let me know. Let me know what one of those things that you kind of keep putting off, and maybe you aren't getting done as quickly as you would like. And let's talk about it. Let's open up some dialogue about it. I'm going to take a small break, pay some bills, and then I'm going to come back on the other side with something cool that I learned from my coursework. We're going to end that on a positive note right after this. Hey, y'all, welcome back. So, some cool stuff that I learned in my coursework is some stuff I've already known. And some stuff is like next level stuff. Like, hey, you knew how to change the brakes, but now here's how to change your air filter. You're like, oh, okay, cool. or rather, you've learned how to change your breaks. Here's how to get more life out of your breaks. You're like, okay. And other stuff is like, oh, hey, I already knew that, but now I feel validated because now I have proof that I know what I'm talking about. And I know when I first announced this to you all, I told you that that was one of my goals in getting the certification. I know I'm a damn good trainer. I know I'm a great trainer. And I know I have some pretty great techniques. But a lot of these techniques are techniques that I've either learned or developed myself or someone taught me. But I didn't go to like an official institution to get some of this stuff. So sometimes you don't know if it's just stuff that you know how to do. It's kind of like being a mechanic. We can stick with that example. You may know how to change brakes. You may know how to, put an engine together. But if you were only taught that stuff or you learned yourself how to do that, but you never went to a school to learn to do that, you don't know that you're doing it the right way or by standard. You don't know that. So going through my coursework is really, really great. So one thing that was reinforced for me, and I kind of learned how to do something a little bit better, is open-ended questions. Now, this is about to take many of you who used to work with me, who I used to manage, down memory lane. But if you haven't worked with me, I'm going to give you a tip on how to get the most out of yourself, conversations in general, and your direct reports. Something really cool that I did previously, but I got reinforced. So you want to ask open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are your best tool in a professional environment because it really helps you engage with the people that you have to work with. It's helpful in a romantic sense too because it's really helpful for dates. This is how you continue conversation, So what is an open-ended question for those of you who don't know? Open-ended questions are questions that can't be answered with yes or no. So the safe bet is questions that start with who, what, when, where, why, and how. I'm sorry, who, what, when, where, why, how. Yep. So if you ask those questions, hey, instead of saying, hey, were you late? Person can just say yes or no, right? But if you say, why were you late? Or what made you late? You have these discussions. You're going to get a little bit more engaging response, and it'll give you so much information. It'll help you gauge the person's engagement. It'll help you gauge how the person's dedication. It'll help you gauge where some challenges and weak points are for that person to kind of like help you overcome. So let's talk about that, right? So let's put ourselves in a scenario. So I'm going to give you a situation that if you're a supervisor, you might find yourself in. And I'm going to give you a situation that if you're a trainer, and oftentimes if you're a supervisor, you're also a trainer. So let's say you're holding somebody accountable, right? Let's say someone handed in a report late, or let's say someone's late to work. And you want to talk to them and you say, sometimes you can use a statement. So a statement is, tell me about your trip to work today. Or tell me about your morning routine. Or tell me about some of the challenges that caused your lateness today. Now you're telling like, hey, give me your story, basically. You're not asking them a question. You're not giving them an opportunity to like not really give you much response. And it's causing them to think. It's causing them to give a thoughtful response. And if they don't, it kind of lets you know like, okay, this is a bad apple. Or this person struggles with communication, right? Or you can say, hey, what led to you? So, or, here, let's combine it two. You can say, tell me about the deadline. When was the deadline? Right? Okay, the deadline was at 10 a.m. on Friday. Okay. So tell me about what led to you missing that deadline. Or what do you think were some of the challenges that caused you being late? Like you can ask these questions, right? Open-ended questions. Because if I say, is there any reason why you handed this in late? You can say no. No. Right? Or I forgot. You can hit me with an I forgot, right? So the beautiful part about open-ended questions, it allows you to kind of like dig deeper. Even if you get a lazy response like, oh, I forgot. Okay, well, what led to you forgetting? What can I do to help you remember? Or what can we do to help you remember? Or tell me about why this is tough for you to remember, and whether you're diplomatic and you're a little bit more positive or you're a little bit more stern and letting the person look, I mean business, we need to nip this in the bud. You can change the tone of the conversation as much as you'd like, but you really stick to these statements and these open-ended questions that will really help you out. Now, let's talk a little bit about from a training standpoint. So I'm gonna give you a real life scenario. So I had a coworker come to me and say, "Hey, we in my job, a portion of the job is taking inbound phone calls." So I had someone come in and take an inbound phone call, and they got presented with a scenario. So they came to me and said, "Hey, um, this person's on the phone and they're telling me that they're missing their deadline to take their test and they need more time. I'm not quite sure what to do." So now let's talk about open-ended questions, right? Now, the biggest mistake that you can do is just give the person the answer. The reason that's a mistake is, one, you're automatically making them dependent on you. Now, every time they come across that situation, they're going to come back to you. Another thing is you miss out on the opportunity to build confidence with them. So what you do is you get them to think about what their options are, because it helps you to understand what they think their options are, or B, it helps you gauge their competency level. So I responded to this person, "Well, what do you think you should do? Give me your best guess. No wrong answers." And the reason I like to end it with no wrong answers is something that I learned in my coursework is it kind of takes the pressure off of them. A lot of people are dealing with minor to severe anxiety, and they don't want to make the wrong decision because they put their self-worth on the quality of their decisions. And if they make the wrong decision, then that means they're a crappy person. So I like saying, "Okay, no wrong answers. Give me your best guess. Let's work together." And they say, "Well, I'm not really sure. I know we need to go to the employer to extend their timeline, but like, I don't know how to, do this or do that." And I asked them some more open-ended questions. I said, "Okay, so why do they need to go to their employer? Why can't we do it? Who are they working for? Who dictates how much time they have?" So I asked these questions, again, open-ended questions, and eventually the person found their way to their answer. And I said, "Great." Another scenario, somebody came to me and said, "Oh, is this what I should do?" And I responded with, "Why should you do that? Or why is that the route you're going with? Or tell me why you chose that. You went with that option." So again, open-ended questions, or that "tell me why" or "tell me about." Basically, if you're starting your statement with "tell me," or another one I like to do is "let's talk about," that's a plus. That's a step in the right direction. And then they came back with their answer, and I say, "Okay, great. You're right, but I want you to understand why you're right." Right? So I'm really learning these language techniques, or reinforcing the language techniques that I've already learned in my previous line of work. And I'm really excited about it. I'm really happy to be able to reinforce this stuff. And my ultimate goal is to have a training consulting firm. Eventually, I'll start my own, but I wouldn't mind working for another firm so I can get some valuable experience on the business. And, eventually I would want to do that. But get me now while it's free. Basically, I have so much knowledge in my head. So before I get to the point where I can charge for it, hit me up, especially if you're a friend of mine. "Hey, look, I'm a supervisor. I'm in a position of leadership. Or even better, I'm not a supervisor. I'm subordinate. I'm a direct report, and I don't know how to talk to my boss about this, or talk to my coworker about this, or talk to my supervisor about this." Hit me up. I would love to share some of the techniques that I've learned. And believe it or not, before you feel like you might be a burden, you're actually being a good friend and helping me out, because I get to practice the stuff that I'm learning, and I kind of can get used to it, through trial and error. So, unfortunately, where I'm at, my environment doesn't necessarily give me many opportunities to train and develop. So I would love to do that outside of work. So if you all want to get in touch with me, if you have questions, again, if you're listening on Spreaker or YouTube, comment what your question is in the comments below, or hit me up in my DMs on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, if we're friends on Facebook. And I would love to help you out. I would love to consult. I think it'd be great. It'll really be fun for me. But that's that. I can't wait to share a little bit more on what I've learned. And I'm going to kind of use this as an accountability piece because the first thing it does is I get excited when I get to talk about coursework. So it gives me an opportunity to talk about it. So that's going to encourage me to do more so I can share with you all what I've learned. But it'll also hold me accountable because I know if I'm talking about it on my podcast here, and when I interact with you all either on social media or in person, it gives you an opportunity to ask me about it. And if I know in my head, oh man, this person's going to ask me about it the next time I see them, I'm going to make sure I'm up to speed and I got some basically proof for the pudding. I'm gonna try to get on my A game. And this is what I'm talking about, like self-awareness and knowing yourself. You got to know the environment that you need to be in to succeed, or at least work towards that. So that way, because we all BS ourselves and other people, we know that about ourselves. So we want to limit the opportunities to do that, like limit the chance to do that. So yeah. I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to take one more break, and then we're going to close it out with the main course. I cannot wait to talk about the results of this poll and just some of the conversations that came up from it. The poll was, should a paternity test be mandatory for the male parent before the birth certificate is signed? I'll let you know how that went right after the break. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So I'm slowly getting into Facebook, back into Facebook. I haven't really posted a status yet. I posted like one because it was a very powerful status. It was actually like I shared the post. But I'm slowly working myself back into Facebook, and I've been commenting and liking on my friends' posts. And I came across a post from my friend, who I'll use her Instagram name, Main Reason. But this was on Facebook. I'm not going to share her real name for her privacy. But she posted something on Facebook, and it went viral. Like, I think it has like over 22,000 shares now at this point. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I got to post this on my Instagram. Again, I'll say this every time. Shout out to all of the people who follow me on Instagram and who actively participate in these polls. Not only do you give me a great source of entertainment and insight, you also help fuel the podcast because I can take these answers and responses and perspectives back to the show and talk about it and expand on it and inform the people who maybe are a little too intimidated to vote, or maybe are unaware of this. Maybe they follow me on Instagram, but they don't check my stories out. So just to break that down real quick, and then I'll get into the story. So on Instagram stories and Facebook stories, you can post like polls, kind of like option A or option B style. So what I'll do is I'll go on Twitter. I'll make the poll because it gives me as many, up to 4 options. I'll make the poll on Twitter. And then what I'll do is I'll screen capture the post and I'll repost it on Instagram as a story with the option to pick an answer. Unfortunately, Instagram only gives you options for 2 answers, which is fine if the poll only requires 2 options. But if the poll is 3 or more, I usually have to tell people to like, hey, respond in the comments below what you think, or hit me up, and a lot of people usually just reply to the story and it goes right to my DM, and I get the answer that way. But if you follow me on Instagram and you're going, hey, I hear Tim talking about these polls, I never see them though. That's because they're on my story. So whenever you get a notification saying Tim updated his story, or you see that I have a new story available, check it out. I get a lot of eyes on it, but you may not know where to look. So this is me telling you where to look. So anyway, back to the story. I see Main Reason post this question about, well, basically it was more of a comment. And it was basically, I'm going to paraphrase here, it basically just said, if that's the father, right, let him get a paternity test. Basically, to summarize her post, it was basically saying, look, if you know that that's the dad anyway, and there's not a shadow of that that's the father anyway because you're loyal or faithful or whatever, then it shouldn't be a problem if he asks for a paternity test, right? Shouldn't be a problem at all. And like I said, it went viral, very interesting topic, very thought-provoking. And I saw a lot of the comments. A lot of the comments in general were of 3 schools of thought. One, which was primarily from men, agreeing with that. Like, yeah, get the paternity test. Women out here are foul. It's usually the ones that got an issue with it or the ones that might have to hide from it anyway, yada, yada, yada. Then you had another school of thought that was primarily women, where they were primarily saying only the women who are up to no good or insecure will have an issue with this anyway. I have no problem doing this because I know he's the father, or it gives him a better sense of security. And surprisingly enough, more women than from what I've seen than the men said that women, ladies, we know without beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's our kid. The only thing that the guy has is basically our word for it. Every single last woman who has a kid that's not adopted knows it's their kid because the kid came out of them. There's no question there. If you think about it, you don't need any more proof than that. Even if you got something on paper that's not as factual as, another human coming out of you, how can you get much more proof than that, But from a male's perspective, in a woman's perspective, if it's a same-sex relationship, well, I guess that doesn't really make any sense because she has sex with another person to do that anyway. But you get my point. Like, from the male's perspective, all I have is your word. I know, I'm not going to get too explicit, but I know what we did in the bedroom, and I know there was no protection, so it increases the likelihood. But if you were fooling around with somebody else, or if I'm infertile, or if you are already pregnant, there's no guarantee that, that's my semen in that egg, And I know I was very surprised to see like a lot of women like kind of take that stance, and it really kind of debunks the myth that women are purely emotional, right? Of course, probably more are than, a little bit, but, a lot of women were coming like, look, ladies, like, we know it's our kid. The guys don't, But then this is the obvious one. That's why I saved it for last. You had a lot of women, in their feelings, and they're kind of like, well, if you got to ask me for a paternity test, then we shouldn't be together, or you question my loyalty, or some even went as far as to say you'll never see your kid after that, or I'm putting you on child support if you got to ask me for a paternity test. All these different statements, and kind of blew my mind, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. But I couldn't pass this up. I'm like, I cannot pass this up. This is being handed to me on a silver platter. So I go to Instagram and Twitter. I post the results, and I only got like 3 votes on Twitter, and those 3 votes, they said, yeah, it should be mandatory. But on Instagram, I got over 20 votes. I want to say it's probably closer to 30. And 56% of the people who voted say, yeah, it should be mandatory. Now, I think you can tell a lot about a person if they say yes and if they say no. I'm going to dive into that too. But it was really cool. I posted the results. Another reason for you to follow me on Instagram and keep an eye out for the stories, because even if you don't vote, you at least get some entertainment by seeing what the results were. And hopefully what I imagine and what I would hope for is that it will cause some thought-provoking discussions in your circles outside of the ones that I'm in. Friends and family members and partners that I haven't had the opportunity to meet, nor will I have an opportunity to have thought-provoking conversations with. You can kind of take these topics that I'm posting and then have a discussion with your partner, with your family, with your kids, with your coworkers or whatever. And the conversation kind of spreads almost in a viral way, and you get more perspective. You get to learn a lot about people too, which is really dope. Now, my comment on Main Reason's Facebook post was, in my opinion, if a woman has an issue with that, it shows a red flag that unfortunately wasn't caught before the pregnancy. I look at it this way, and this is the perspective that I'm coming from. And this is why you never really know someone's story. You never really know someone's background. but it can give you a lot of insight based on the way they answer. So obviously, I don't vote in these polls, but if I did, my answer would be yes, it should be mandatory. But it's from a skewed perspective, a biased perspective. So as I've shared with you previously, my father was an amazing man. And unfortunately, my mom was, a certain way. And due to that, there was some uncertainty surrounding who my father was. And even got to the point that my mom was feeling a little petty. And this is a side of the story that you often don't hear. You only see the single mom, and you want to kind of applaud her for being a single mom, but you want to bash your dad. You have no idea what that relationship was like that led to that. And honestly, if they're incompatible, sometimes it's for the better. You have no idea why the father is not around if that's the case, or why the mother is not around if that's the case. So for my situation, my mom actually actively tried to keep my father out of my life, even went as far to ask me to kind of lie in court when my father was fighting for custody. But my father went and got a paternity test. He said, now is no, without a shadow of a doubt, that this is my son, and I'm going to do everything in my power to be around my son, and raise my son. So if it was up to my mom and it purely went off the way my mom felt, my dad would have never been able to get that. Well, he would have been able to get the paternity test, I'm sure. But you get my point. There'd have been a chance where I would have never known my father, or my father wouldn't have been in my life because of the way my mom felt. Now, I know that every woman isn't like that, but I know that there are a lot of women who are, and unfortunately, it doesn't get talked about enough. But I think it just gives a sense of security. And in some cases, it gives a sense of pride. I think a lot of women who are saying, you're questioning my loyalty and why you're making me feel bad, essentially, take it as a badge of honor. It's almost kind of like, no, here's documented proof that this is my child, and I'm going to stand by this child, and I had a child with this woman. That way, if and when this person goes and looks at their birth certificate, they know without a shadow of a doubt, I am this person's father. And honestly, I feel that that's priceless. It's like a badge of honor. And it really just boils down to like reframing, right? It also helps some opportunity for some legal situations in the future, especially if that father is trying to get out on paying child support, things of that nature. You got something in paper saying, no, he's the dad. Here's the proof, right? If it's a situation where that has to happen. Or you're fighting for custody, things of that nature. So I think it gives a lot of insight. I know one person who responded with, no, she's extremely religious. And I think she's from a perspective of, this is what marriage is supposed to be. Well, first of all, you're not supposed to have a child unless you're married. And this is what marriage is supposed to be. So if marriage is really this way, then no, it shouldn't be a paternity test, because you should know who the father is. And although I respect that and can understand that viewpoint, I do think it's a little naive, because you got to understand that the world doesn't operate within your standards of religion, and the world doesn't operate within your belief system. Even if it wasn't a religious belief system, it was just a philosophical belief system. The world doesn't operate within that. Also, from my experience and perspective, the people replying to no were mostly of the stance of, I don't want to hurt the mother's feelings if it's a man, or I don't want my feelings to be hurt if it's a woman. Usually, but believe it or not, a majority of the women and a majority of the men said, yeah, no, absolutely, should be mandatory. I'm not surprised that more men said it should be. I mean, obviously, there's stigma around that, right? But it provides a lot of insight, in my opinion, on the man too, because it shows that the man could have some insecurity issues. It could show that the man doesn't trust, or maybe had a lot of traumatic experiences where the child's mother put them through a lot, and there's some doubt there, like, hey, I might not even be this person's father, And it's kind of like gives you an informed decision. You don't feel guilted into something. But again, you can tell a lot about a person based on the way they answer some of these questions. And it was very insightful for me. I thought it was pretty dope, to say the least. But I encourage you all to please participate in these polls, because not only are you rewarded for it, because I'm going to bring it back to the podcast, but it's just so insightful. It's so entertaining to me. And I really, really do enjoy it. I really, really do enjoy it. That said, everybody, that's pretty much it for today. I appreciate you sticking around for another week. I hope to hear from you all. I want to hear your feedback. And I want you to reach out to me for some training tips and insight and guidance and counseling. I want you to reach out to me to tell me what are some of the goals in life that you have right now that are a little bit challenging for you. Help me feel like I'm not alone. Reach out to me. And let me know what you think about the paternity test thing. If you're listening on YouTube or Spreaker, leave it in the comment below. If not, reply to this if you're watching this snippet on Instagram. But what do you think? Should a paternity test be mandatory before the male parent signs the birth certificate? Or no, leave it be. What are the pros and cons of that happening? And try to be as objective as possible. Oh, and one last thing for y'all to throw it out there. I'm thinking about getting a car. So I've had my license since I was like 19 years old. But I've only owned one car. But I don't have a car right now. I'm thinking about getting one. And I find that there's 4 schools of thought that I've heard pros and cons for from multiple people. And I want to put this out here for y'all. When buying a car, actually I should make this my next poll. When buying a car or getting a car, should you lease or lease to own? Let's group that in the same category. Lease a car or lease to own. Should you go to the auction and get a car as is and just put in the effort or the work to fix it up? Should you buy a used car flat out? Go to a dealership, get a certified pre-owned car that's, $12K, $11K or whatever. Buy it flat out so you don't have to worry about a car note, but you have to save up that money. So for example, you drop 10 G's on a car, you don't have to worry about paying hundreds of dollars each month, but you do have to save up 10 G's, right? Or do you go to a dealership, you get a car note, and you just deal with the car payment each month? You get a little bit more options and flexibility on what you can get, but you deal with a car note. You got to add that into your budget. So let me know what you think. Give me your pros and cons, and you'd actually be helping me to make a decision. So please do give me your feedback. That said, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day or week, depending on when you're listening to this. And as always, I'll keep talking if you'll listen. Take care.